Welcome back everyone. Today we're going to be covering how to win the game from level 1. Now in my opinion, being good at level 1 is one of the most underrated skills a top laner can have by far. I don't really see a lot of players have a good understanding of how to push themselves level 1 and get the most out of their champion until I'd say around Masters Plus. In Korea they're a bit better at it, but generally, it doesn't really get until Grandmaster Challenger where players are really good at using their champion to the limits at level 1. So we're going to be covering how exactly you can do so, how you can set the pace of the game. So if that sounds good to you, let's get it started. Hey everyone, if you're passionate about improving and leveling up your gameplay, I've been offering coaching classes for 5 days a week for quite some time, and just seen firsthand how much my students have been improving across all different elo brackets. How it works is you'll come to a class with a VOD like reviewed, and I'm going to help you with your early game, your mid game, or anything you feel like needs improving. And if you're unsure, then I'm going to steer you in the right direction by setting clear learning objectives. Link's going to be in the description, I hope to see you there, but if not, then enjoy the video. Now, before I go through a bunch of examples of how to execute and win from level 1, it's important to understand what gives you the advantage in a level 1 fight. How do you know if you're going to win if the trade goes for long enough? Now, of course, the most clear one, the most obvious one, is your champion's natural early game power. It doesn't matter how good you are at playing the level 1, if you're playing Dr. Mundo versus Darius and the fight goes for long enough, you're gonna lose. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you have no options level 1. You can, stack your grasp, get a good Q grass trade onto him and disengage. If he's not playing that aggressive, you can still chunk him and take little trades. It just means if the trade goes for long enough, you're most likely gonna lose. Now, I'm gonna show a tier list on the screen of some examples of champions that excel in the level 1. Now, of course, the most famous one, Darius. The reason he's so good level 1, if the fight goes for long enough and you get 5 stacks of passive, you're just going to run over any champion. So if you fight this champ level 1, you of course need to kill him before he gets to 5 stacks, or you need to get him low enough that once he hits 5 stacks, you can kill him relatively quickly before the fight goes for too long afterwards. Now, most of them, of course, Olaf picking up your axe, Fiora, you've got your vitals. They all have clear reasons why they're stronger level 1, but the reason I didn't make a tier list of every single champion is I don't want you to rely on a list and see, oh, my champion's in B tier, that means I'm going to completely respect any A tier champ, because of course the way you play it is the biggest factor, but also certain champions do well into other ones. So for example, a champion like Irelia is quite famous for her having a strong level 1, and if you're to play up against a Jace, you might say, okay, Irelia has a stronger level 1 than Jace, I'll play Jace and play safe. However, if you take Conqueror on Jace and you play quite aggressive, you take over the third bush level 1, shoot her as she walks in, try to zone her from the wave before it gets low enough for her to stack her Q, you are going to win that level 1. So it's really important not to rely on, oh, I'm pretty sure this champ's stronger than me level 1. You really need to think about how the matchup actually goes, but also the tech they're taking. So I'm going to be going through that shortly. But first, I do want to show some more examples of champions that can excel level 1 if certain conditions are met. Now, these aren't the only champs in the game, of course they can do well level 1, these are just some examples, but they do well in certain scenarios. So for example, Irelia, if your opponent zones you from the wave level 1 and you just Q onto him, you're probably going to struggle, but if you, hide in the bush, maybe even hide in the alcove, as I've seen some Aurelias do, and you come in when the 3 melees of 1 HP, you get 3 stacks really quickly, Q onto your opponent, you can win level 1 in a lot of scenarios, and the biggest one out of this list in my opinion is Tryndamere, because a lot of my students really hate versing this champion, but the level 1 is a lot easier to deal with now that lethal tempo is removed, because he's going to be taking grasp. So if you walk in with your wave and you chill, maybe you just auto him once and click away and you let him bash the wave freely and get his grasp prepared and high fury, he's going to dominate you in this level 1 trade. You need to be fighting him before he gets to that point. Now, not every champion can do that, of course, but let's say you're playing Garen, and level 1 you've got Conqueror, you auto attack him and spin, and you decimate the entire wave and get a great trade onto him, you're probably going to be able to get push, get level 2 first and take a bigger trade later on. However, if you play it slow and just hitting your creeps, just chilling, and you let him stack up Fury and Grasp, and then he trades onto you, that's going to be a different story. So there's a lot of conditions, a lot of champions in the game have different conditions for doing well level 1. It's important for you to figure it out, which, how you can make your champion succeed. Another factor you need to keep in mind past just what champions are being played is going to be the setup that both champions are taking. There's a big difference between versing a champion like Jax or a champion like Yone and they take Conqueror compared to if they take Fleet or Grasp. If they take Fleet or Grasp, they're going to do better in short trades, especially if they take Grasp. Most of the time, they'll need a stack on the wave before they take a trade, or if they take Conqueror and extend it all, it might be good for them depending on the matchup, of course. So you really need to pay attention to the keystone, and I'd say if you have Conqueror, you're going to be more favored than a champ with PTA in a long trade, and of course Conk, then PTA, then Grasp, Fleet, Comet, Airy, they're all pretty similar depending on the champ, but most of the time if you have Conqueror, you're going to win if the fight goes for a long time if they don't also have Conqueror. Now there might be some exceptions to that rule, of course. If you're playing Conqueror Cho'Gath, again, you're not going to beat a Pressy Attack Darius, for example. But generally, if the champion strength is relatively even or one of them slightly stronger, but you've got the extended all-in rune being Conqueror, you're going to win if the trade goes for long enough. So it's important to pay attention to their keystone. And the reason this may be more important in certain games than others is because champs like Garen, for example, if they have Phase Rush or if they have Conqueror, massive difference in level 1 power. I'd say Conqueror Garen level 1 is actually very powerful. He can one-shot the wave with it and get full stacks of Conqueror with just auto attack and E onto you, but if he takes Phase Rush, he's probably going to start Q and try to disengage. So big difference in power in level 1 there. And another one we talked about a little bit, Jace. If Jace has Phase Rush or if Jace has Conqueror, very, very different in how they can play trades. Because if you're playing Fiora versus Jace and you've got Conqueror, and he's got Phase Rush, you can really tank a lot of damage and still win that extended trade. But if he has Conqueror, you have to be quite careful with the way you take out your trade. So yeah, a lot of importance is placed on the keystone that they take, but also the secondary runes, because bone plating, in my opinion, the most important factor of bone plating is going to be that level 1. If you're playing Set versus Jax and the Set has bone plating, or if he has second wind, that also changes how the level 1 is going to go. And you can check if they have bone plating by opening up OPGG before the game loads in, loading screen, and having a look. You can check the runes through the live game section, and if they have bone plating, most of the time you want to be trying to pop that, get one auto attack down and disengage back into the bush, wait for it to run out, and then go for your extended trade. There are going to be exceptions, of course. If you're playing Darius versus bone plating, I'm going to keep saying champs like Darius, champs like Cho'Gath, champs like Mundo, you're still going to win. You don't have to worry about it too much, but generally, if your champion is relatively even, bruiser on bruiser action, then you want to be popping their bone plating before you go for that all-in. And the final 2 points you need to keep in mind is going to be their starting item, but also their summoner spells. If you're versing, let's say you're playing Fiora versus a Set. You've got Doran's Blade, you're ready to scrap, and they've got Doran's Shield and TP Flash. That's going to be a lot easier for your level 1. It's going to be so much easier for you to win that extended all-in compared to if they took Doran's Blade and Ignite. So it's really important to check, which Doran's item they started, because if they went D-Shield, most of the time they want to take short trades. If they went D-Blade, they want to go for a long time. Now, there are going to be some variables, of course. If you're playing Aatrox versus a Darius, don't really need Doran's Shield. He doesn't really poke you down, so you should go Doran's Blade regardless, even though you don't want to all-in him early on. But around level 4, when the wave's bouncing back, you do want that extended trade, which is a big reason why it's going to be better. But yeah, specifically matchups that are a bit closer, like a Fiora versus a Set, that's the best example, where Set having Ignite or D-Blade, very scary. You might even need to give him push. Well, you definitely need to give him push if he knows what he's doing. But if he takes Doran's Shield and TP, you can even cheese him, get behind him level 1 and take an extended all-in, because you're going to be very confident that you're going to win that result. So I'm going to be summarizing this with a pre-game checklist. So unless you're completely confident, I know I beat this guy level 1, the checklist that I recommend you follow before the game begins is of course going to be, for starters, the champion, the matchup that you're playing, the runes, so the keystone they've taken, and also if they have bone plating or not, and also the summoner spell. So if you're playing Fiora versus Set, you'll see, okay, he beats me level 1 if he's got everything set up, and then the loading screen pops in, you see, oh, he's got TP. Oh, he's actually taken, Grasp or something like that. I'm going to win if the fight goes for a long time. So really start to break down the runes and the summoner spells that they have, not just the champion you're playing against, but if you follow the, check 1, 2, 3, and then you start to get a feel for it, you can see, oh, I actually lost this 1v1 because he had Ignite this time. I'll keep that in mind for next time. Oh, he's got TP next time. I'm going to see if I can beat him, and really start to figure it out through trial and error, because if you don't, you're never going to be good at level 1. Now, moving on, you're as prepared as possible. In your pregame, it's important to go through a quick in-game checklist. Now, step 1 is going to be get your level 1 ward down. If you're trying to win the game from level 1 and playing very aggressive, the enemy jungler is going to see that and be much more likely to gank you. So what I recommend as a general rule to follow, there are going to be variables, but an easy general rule to follow, at around 1 minute and 23 seconds, if you're on blue side, I want you to ward the tri-bush. Now, if you feel like you're going to win the level 1, even if you face check them, so you're playing Darius versus Cho, or, Set versus Garen, something like that, you can just walk in there, so they don't see their ward. It's even, it's even better if they don't see you place it. And if they're in there, just bash them up. If they leash, you should even hang around a little bit just to make sure they don't leash, because if they do leash and come back through that try, you're going to get a great trade. But if not, just get your ward down and prepare for lane. Now, if you're on red side, I recommend warding deep in the river at around 1 minute and 15 or 1 minute and 20. The reason for that is if you ward that early, you can take over the third lane bush level 1, which is also a good cheese spot. You can do the same thing on red side if you want to ward the try earlier. So the third lane bush can also catch people off guard, but a good reason to ward deep in the river. Of course, if you get ganked, you have more warning, but if you see them leash, see your opponent leash, and they come back, so after you ward, I do recommend waiting in the dot bush for a little bit just to see, and if they leash and come down through river, you can get another great trade onto them, and in some cases even zone them from XP. Now let's imagine they're not leashing because they know how to play top lane. You got your ward down, you're ready for battle. Step 2 is let the wave settle down. I see too many people chasing people down the wave. And this is going to be consistent not just for wave 1, but wave 2 and wave 3 as well. There might be some exceptions if you just completely destroy them. Darius versus Cho'Gath, our favorite example. I'll stop using it at this point. But of course, let the wave settle down, especially level 1, and then fight them. You want all of their minions to be hitting yours before you go for this extended trade, or the minions are going to bash you. But also it's going to, draw some damage onto you away from your minions, and it's going to make you push too fast in a lot of situations. Now, once the wave is settled down, this is where it's go time. Try to get behind your opponent level 1. There's a big difference between a Jax walking straight at you, or a Trundle, or for any champion we've been talking about, and a difference between them coming from behind you. Because if they're behind you, they need to walk through you to get back to their tower, so you're going to get more hits, you're going to get more Conqueror stacks, more damage, so the trade is going to be much bigger than it was if you just walk straight at them from your wave. And this might be obvious to some of the high rank, watchers or people that watch a lot of educational content, but I've seen so many students, so many players in general, just walk in with the wave regardless of the matchup and not really push the limits of their champ level 1. So you really need to find out, do I win this level 1? And experiment if you're unsure, because if you never do that, you're never going to grow. Alright, so now it's time for our examples. How do we actually utilize our champion strong level 1? So for our first example, I'm playing Fiora up against an Aatrox. So good matchup for me, but if this champion gets around level 4, level 5, he has a lot of room to actually trade onto me. So I really want to be taking a great trade level 1 and set the pace of the lane. Now, as for our checklist, you can see here, I'll press tab shortly, I've taken Conqueror with Doran's Blade and Ignite, so maximum power for my level 1 to 3, especially level 1, and he's taken Ignite and Grasp. Now, Grasp may be a little bit better in this matchup later on for Aatrox for taking short trades, but in terms of level 1, it's quite useless unless he stacks it on the wave, so we're not going to be letting him do so, and he's taking Ignite, not TP, so I do have to keep that in mind for an extended fight. But I know I'm still going to win regardless. So I'm a little bit lazy on my ward here. Should have gone a bit earlier, a little bit of lack of discipline there. But still, I got my ward down, and as you can see, I'm going to wait for this minion wave to settle down, even though I could queue the vital right now. I'm waiting for it to settle, and now boom, the 6th minion has locked onto mine. I'm fine to trade onto him, and only really 2 minions turned onto me, and they gave up straight away. So no issue with the wave here. So taking a long trade, and some of you'll notice here, my movement has been quite erratic, because I'm trying to bait out his Q. So you see this click, looks like I'm running in a straight line. Very easy to hit an Aatrox Q onto me, but I'm going to dodge at the last second before he's even queued me, so I'm not even reacting to this. I'm not even looking, to be honest, that much of where he places it and trying to, min-max dodge it. I'm just predicting you're going to queue right now, and I'm going to pre-dodge already. So see, I dodge Q1, and now again, I'm clicking away, Q2 me. It's so easy, just hit the sweet spot onto me, but I clicked back straight away. So a lot goes into having a good level 1, but playing around what your opponent wants to do is going to be part of it. So if you versus Mordekaiser, he wants to Q, Set wants to stun you into the wave or start W, you really have to be playing around your opponent's key level 1 ability. So as you can see, the trade already successfully won. So that sets the pace for the lane. So I've pretty much won this lane from level 1, and I'll just play it out so you see what happens. But from this point, it's very difficult for him to come back. Especially if you have a great level 1 against a champ that doesn't have TP, they don't really have an opportunity to reset the wave. So I'm punishing here, taking short trades. Could have gone a bit longer there, but didn't really want to tank the Q. Playing for also for my level 2 spike, and now dead, right? So this kill is purely from how I played my level 1. If I walked in with my wave, and I played passive, or if I just take a short trade level 1 off vitals, this opportunity would not have come to me. So, but it took a lot of practice, right? You can see it wasn't as easy as me just jumping in and killing him. I had to, predict his Q. I had to pre-dodge it, all of these little things that add up. But I'd say the checklist, even if I messed up and got hit by a couple Qs or something, it still would have paid off, right? I knew I was stronger level 1, I got my ward down in case the jungler punished me, I let the wave settle, so my trade was going to be pretty good regardless, but of course playing it better around what the opponent wants to do is going to make it as good as possible. Moving on to our next example, I'm playing Darius up against Cassante. Now, of course, Darius is a lot easier to execute, but still going to be very similar concepts. I'm going to get my deep ward level 1, but because I saw him, I wanted to staunch him off, and this ward is a bit deeper than normal. I chose to ward the camps, but fine, right? As long as you're getting a deep ward level 1 on red side or a good ward and try on blue, you're going to be able to play around the jungle. So I'm up against a Silas jungle, famous champion for just ganking, and now as you can see, wave settled down, walking behind him, trying to zone him from XP. So the reason I chose this example is because even if you don't get a great trade level 1, if your level 1 power is high enough, you can zone them from XP. It's perfectly fine to drop 3 CS, the first 3, to deny 3 XP from the opponent. And that's exactly what I do here. You see I lost all 3 of my minions. You can see by my camera panning. I don't want to miss my own XP, so I'm keeping a little eye on how low they are. Maybe I could have hit Cassante one more time, but I don't want to miss any XP. So I get all 3 of my XP, and he loses all 3 of his. So really good level 1 already, even though the trade is technically not great for me. I'm up so much XP that it's definitely going to be worth it. So, and as you can see by combat power, Doran's Blade, I've got, Conqueror, really strong and extended all in. I still think Doran's Shield is better in this matchup objectively at the highest level, but I'm feeling really confident to play it out. And now look, I'm level 2, he's level 1, and it's going to take him a really long time to get level 2 because he missed so much XP, so it's going to lead in a kill eventually. So even if you can't get a great trade level 1, like what happened in the Fiora vs Aatrox matchup, if you can zone them from a bunch of XP or even a bunch of CS, you can still gain an advantage regardless, because not everyone's going to play as aggressive as that Aatrox did, and I'd say the lower elo you go, the more passive people will play. Except for, to a degree, I'd say silver and below, they just walk up with the wave, you can fight them regardless. But I'd say around gold, plat, emerald, you'll have some players that play quite safe, so you're not really going to have that opportunity to just kill them from level 1 if they're respecting you, but you can still zone them from a bunch of XP or a bunch of CS and gain a lead regardless. Now for our next example, I wanted to showcase a champion that's not traditionally very powerful level 1, but you still have a lot of options if you play it correctly. So in this game I'm playing Camille vs Cassante, and as you can see I've got Conqueror, I've got Doran's Blade, so any extended level 1 trade is going to be very beneficial to me. So even though, objectively versus a really great Cassante player, Doran's Shield is going to be better. If you play the level 1 to 3 very well, get a lot of value from level 1, base after wave 3 if you need to, and buy a longsword refillable, you're going to be fine without that extra regen. So of course, because I'm stronger level 1, always looking for options, I take him for the try. If he's not here, I'll try cheese him from leashing, but because he's here, extended trade onto him, and you can see even though he has Q3, I turn to fight him. Even if that hit me, I wouldn't care, because I want the fight to go for as long as possible and utilize my Conqueror, so I can ward it as I'm leaving, and now he hasn't seen the ward, so he can't ping his jungler and let him know where my vision is, and now boom, zoning him from the wave. The wave is settled, it's time to attack, and really get a lot of value from my champion's level 1 power. So you can see how pressuring it is for this guy to play the lane, and now he's just really low. And because I don't have Q or passive here, I'm just going to go collect my 3 minions. I can't really zone him from the wave here, from the XP, so I'm fine to get my minions, and then boom, little trade there. And the reason I didn't extend that trade is, of course, the wave is not settled down yet. So it doesn't just apply to the first wave like we talked about, every wave. You do not want to be fighting in the minion wave. There are going to be some exceptions. Champs like Jax, you can kind of get away with it with your E, because you won't take that much damage, but you're still going to ruin your wave, so I do recommend against it, unless you're probably going to be killing them. So you can see now, really hard already for him to play the game. My Gragas is even on my side, and I'm going to get level 2 and go for a trade straight away. So boom, hold the E a little bit, wait for his juke, and we've already got a kill straight away purely from how I played my level 1, even though, objectively Camille's not that strong a level 1 champ. I'd say she's a great champ, actually, don't get me wrong, but in terms of level 1 to 2 solo kills, you don't really think about Camille, right? You think about Darius, Olaf, Set. Camille is a champion that you can give yourself a lot of options for if you're looking for them, but generally not a lot of people do. I see too many Camille's default to Grasp or default to W start when you have so many options if you go Conqueror with Q start in certain matchups. So now, to quickly show an example of what we're talking about in the Fiora vs Aatrox matchup, and that is anticipating what your opponent's going to do. It's one of the most important skills for a high rank player, and it's something you can work on level 1 to make your level 1 even stronger. Now, in this game, the reason I'm late to lane, even though I hate being late in this type of matchup, is because my team was hard calling for a level 1 invade and we had a blitzcrank, and as you can see by the assist, it did work, but generally I do hate being late to lane, so that's why I'm not getting behind him and I'm not getting a ward down, stuff like that. But I really wanted to show how anticipating what your opponent's going to do can give you a great level 1 trade. So, okay, regardless of this trade, we get a good trade, playing around vitals, trying to get a long fight with Conqueror, but because the wave was going in, I didn't want to take it any longer than that. But the anticipation is going to come shortly. So now I know I'm getting pushed in this matchup. I'm going to take a level 2 trade onto him. Generally in this matchup, if you Q onto Camille and she outspaces you, she's going to utilize her W, right? So I'm using that knowledge to my advantage, and I Q onto it, and I click back. You see this click back here? Makes it very likely that she's going to W onto me, and then I click forward, and she pops her W, and I parry it with my W. Now, what's Camille going to do in this scenario? If you're playing Camille, and you're near your tower, if Fiora is walking towards you, you're going to try to get your passive and your grasp proc so that you can block a lot of her damage, get some healing in, get some damage onto her. So me knowing that as well, I'm clicking towards her now, but I'm already clicking backwards soon, judging by my mouse cursor, before she's even turned around. So none of this has anything to do with reacting or having insane mechanics or anything like that. Of course, you need a good level of mechanics to execute onto it. don't get me wrong, but a lot of it is just anticipating what he's doing. So now I'm clicking back. Right now, look, I've clicked back before he's clicked onto me, but he's clicked for his grasp, and then I click forward. That little movement now has made him lose his position. He's clicked away, I got an auto attack, and I click back again. He's trying so hard to get his passive and his grasp onto me, but I'm just not allowing that. And then I Q onto him, but I do a longer range Q. So again, even though I could Q auto attack him, he would get an auto attack onto me and his grasp and passive. And I was a little bit scared of a tower shot, but generally I don't want to give him his auto attack. And now the trade is just completely over. So I'll end it here. Don't really need to show you the rest of this lane. And spoiler, I do get ganked and it ruins my good day. But generally you can see anticipating what your opponent's going to do is a great way to win level 1. And that skill set that you develop is going to help you in all aspects of the game. Now, for our final laning example, I chose not to show myself, playing a strong champ like Fiora or Olaf and just running someone down. I wanted to showcase one of my students who's been working on this concept for a few weeks now. So my student is currently in silver. I think we started off in bronze. He's getting close to gold, and he loves to play Garen. So Garen, of course, not a famously strong level 1 champ, but if you take the right setup, which is what we've been doing, he's got Doran's Blade, he's got Ignite, he's got Conqueror in this game, you still have more options than you'd think. So the reason he's low is because he had a little fight with the enemy Volibear top in level 1, and he's going to be practicing while trying to showcase the concepts we've been talking about, and he's been working on for a few weeks, and he's gotten a lot better at. So you can see now he's taking over this bush level 1. He's got a level 1 ward, deep in the river. He chose to avoid enemy jungle, which is fine, which is why they had a little bit of a scrap. Volibear didn't like it, and he's waiting for the minion wave to settle, and now he's going to go behind him. So auto attack and then E, that's something else we've been working on too. He initially would start off his trades with just spinning, but auto attack and E of course gets you extra conquer stacks, extra damage, and really gets the most out of your champion level 1. And the reason he is ending the trade now, of course, he's up against a Volibear, even though it's a grass champ. Normally versus grass champs you do want to fight for a long time. So if this was a Ornn, for example, he'd probably keep it going. But versus Volibear you do need to be playing around that bite, which is why it was smart of him to disengage this trade. So now again, letting the wave settle in. He's playing a bit too far back for my liking, but he's still following the concepts, letting the wave follow in, and now he's going to be looking for another trade. But because he took a great trade level 1, he's getting pushed, he's going to get 2 before the volley, and now, this is another point about playing level 1. If you can trade while getting level 2, it's even better. Because most players you play against, if they see you lusted a minion and see you get level 2, they're going to think, oh shit, I'm going to be clicking back now, I don't want to get killed. But he's already trading on this volley, and the volley says, oh, we're both level 1, I've got a minion wave helping me. But of course, Garen's going to tick 2 during the spin, and then he's going to use it to kill this Volibear. So really good of my student here to get the most out of his champion level 1. But 2 weeks ago, he was just walking with the wave every matchup no matter what, and playing very passive, and trying to farm up his Berserker Greaves. But there's so much more you can be doing, regardless of the champ you're playing. Of course, there are going to be some exceptions, but generally if you are playing a bruiser champion or a champ that's stronger than the opponent level 1 or even strength, you are going to have more options than you believe. So try to push yourself level 1. Hopefully this video helps you out and really helps you set the pace for winning lane straight away. So we'll wrap up the laning section, but we're going to be finishing it off with attacking the enemy jungler level 1. Now, I see this quite often on champs like Darius and Olaf, but I'd say that's really it. On one of my earlier career trips, every single time I versed a champ like Riven or a champ like Fiora, and I wasn't that focused level 1, they would just run into the jungle and just completely kill my jungler. Or even if I was playing a weak level 1 champ like a Cassante, they would just 1v2 us. So I'm going to show an example of just that, and just really try to expand your mind and see you have a lot more options level 1 than you think, especially if you do play a champ that's relatively strong. So in this game, the reason I go for this level 1, even though Urinate top's quite strong level 1, of course with the removal of lethal tempo, way weaker than before, but in this game he's got Conquest and not the weakest champ, it's because they have a Sylas. Sylas jungle, very weak level 1, so if they had a Hecarim, a Lilia, champs like that, I'd be looking to do the same thing. So you can see I'm letting the red buff soften him up a little bit, but then I want to go before the red gets too low and he can smite it, and I'm just tanking both of them completely, popping your potion level 1, which is another point for level 1 all-ins as well. I forgot to mention, even in lane, you want to be getting that potion down during that extended trade if you can, especially if you take Doran's Blade, you should have no hesitation about popping your pot early. So you can see, just completely 1v2 them because their jungle champ's so weak and he got damaged by the buff a little bit. So if you do attack level 1, make sure you wait for the buff to soften them up, wait for them to start that blue or start that red and then go for that fight, and it's going to be in your favor. So I did feel more confident because my Lilia was on my side, but he just farmed Raptors, classic jungler. But generally, especially on champs like Riven, champs like Set, you have a lot of options level 1 more than you'd think, so try to think more beyond just what you can do in your lane. Alright everyone, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the video. The reason I went with this one is just because my students have been working really hard on their level 1s recently, and I've seen some pretty impressive results in terms of them winning matchups that they used to lose, or getting a lot of early solo kills in general. So I really hope you work on your level 1, push the limitations of your champion, and really start to get a feel of what you can accomplish in the early stages of the game. But of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask down below, but if not, I'll see you guys next time.